Hey guys, this is the Blue Collar Future Podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Robison, and we've got co-host Jessie with us again today.
What's up, guys?
We're talking today about purpose and fulfillment. But before that, we're talking about gloves. And I think this brings a good kind of piece of conversation to think about. So we're talking about being prepared, kind of, and having extra gloves. And Jesse was mentioning, one of the younger guys is always forgetting gloves or something, so having an extra pair is good. Um, One interesting part about when I was starting is I felt like some of the guys that were um, older, more experienced than me, were unprepared, like in every way possible. And little changes I've made have been like buying big packs of gloves, right? And so having
Mm.
extra gloves. So if you get a pair wet, you have like a selection to choose from. Have all sorts of different extra gloves and make sure you're just prepared for the day in case something happens. The reason I say that is it pays to have good people above you that are setting an example. And so I think it's important that we are setting an example for these guys that are younger than us. And like a lot of the guys on our crew right now, I feel like um, I don't want to say because of me, but partially because of me, have been getting extra pairs of gloves and having like making sure they have water and all that type of stuff, just being prepared, little things like that, just because they're seeing that I'm doing it and seeing that I'm not over
Mm.
here. Oh, man, I don't have a pair of gloves. My hands are cold, like all that type of stuff, you know. That's it's just an interesting thing to think about because when I was starting out, I was in that stage of roll out of bed, get ready to go to work, run by the gas station, not be prepared for the day, be hungry throughout the day, not have enough water, like all of these random things. And it was because that was like the example I had from coworkers that it was never like come to work with more than necessary for the job. So anyways, just a interesting point to make out. Like it cannot be overstated to just be prepared for the day. I mean, have some extra water, bring food, like having that Lunchies lunchbox. I've two of my coworkers have gotten one of those now. Um, and bring actually three. My two brothers and one of the other guys that work with us have all gotten one.
Dude, that makes it so nice. Like it's just,
Yeah.
especially like I'm 40 feet up in the air, so I really don't want to climb back down and like for anything. But inevitably we do. You're like, I'm no, you know, gotta go get something. But I agree with you. It's the like having everything with you just makes everything so much easier. And then on top of that, like being in some form of leadership on the job site, having extra stuff, like if the other person, whether it's like I've been the young guy that had to borrow tools or, forget stuff. So it's nice to have like you see like a kid like, hey dude, you forgot your gloves, like that kind of sucks. Everything's cold. Do you want some?
Well, yeah, and I mean it goes across the board of just that little extra step gets your mind into thinking, okay, what do I need for the job today? Like, are we going to be somewhere where it's a little bit colder? Do I need an extra hoodie? Do I need extra shirt? That type of stuff.
Mm.
Do I have markers? Do I have enough nails? Like, are my batteries for my cordless tools charged? All of that type of stuff. Just it's little steps here and there that when you have everything, the job goes so much easier. And people notice that. So if you're on top of it and you're doing something proactive to be prepared for the day, people will notice that and they'll be like, man, maybe I should start doing that.
Mhm.
So because there is a huge difference when you're on the job and oh, I don't have a marker. I lost my tape measure. Don't have enough gloves. There's, my some of my tools are gone. I didn't bring enough water. I don't have food. I'm hungry. Like all that type of stuff. It's little things here and there that just absolutely make your day miserable, where it would be completely fine without it. With being prepared. So,
Right. Yeah. Dude, totally agree.
yeah.
Totally agree with that.
So I guess you want to kickstart us here because I think this topic is someone reached out to you about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
My buddy Tony reached out and was like, he was seeing if, he's like, are you still doing like the podcast thing? I got an idea. And he had said he's gone into higher education, gotten his master's and everything, and he's got into his field, right? And then after being in it so long, he's realized like this doesn't fulfill me. And so he's not even using what his degree would have led to, which we see far more than we should, is that kids will go to college and then not even use their degree. And by preface, I don't want to get into like, I don't think college is a complete waste of time. Like there's uses for it. But you see it more often than it should that they'll go get a degree and then they don't even end up in that field. And so Tony was like, hey, like, I'm not the only one, you know? And he goes, and I see you guys and like other people in the trades that I know and stuff. And it's like, you guys seem to be like very like fulfilled and passionate about what you're doing. And so he's like, you should guys should do a discussion on that, like what we see maybe of like the differences, like why do we find so much fulfillment in the trades, or like, even if it's as simple as like being able to drive down the road with your wife and be like, hey, I built that, or like, hey, I worked on that. And I think that does play a big role into it, is because we like, no matter what trade you're doing, you can see the physical progress. And there's plenty of other jobs where I'm sure you can sit back and look at it, but my brain goes to like, if you're in an office just like clicking away on a keyboard, you never get to see your final product unless like the client like messages you was like, hey, I'm super satisfied with that. I imagine, like I don't know that world, but I imagine that like that plays a massive role in like the fact that we can finish a building, like a 40-foot tall building, and look back and be like, cool, like I did that. Like that's going to be there for at least, 100 something years.
yeah, yeah, and to continue on that topic on that little vein there, I know a little bit of the kind of technology world, and I think it boils down to the fact that we can see those tangible, measurable results every single day. And
Mhm.
there's a task. You do something, construct something right in front of you with your hands, and it's finished, and you can see the finished product right then and there. Whereas a lot of other things, it's just harder to see measurable progress. And then you know at the end of a project, like say if you're just like I would say graphic design and that type of stuff is probably some of the more fulfilling
Mhm.
kind of desk jobs, I guess, because you can sort of see that. But like I know my wife will say it's hard to make content for her stuff because it's not interesting because it's not as fast and real-time result type stuff. It's not satisfying in the moment type stuff. So you have to have a really strong desire and interest in doing that type of stuff and find fulfillment. But I think the fulfillment comes from in your head no matter what you're doing. I think it's maybe just easier in a trade to see results right then and there. So,
Yeah, I'd agree. And yeah, I think, I mean, there's the old adage of like you will find what you seek. So it's whether it doesn't like there's people that are miserable in the trades. Like we do a good job of portraying that we're happy because we are, but like there's for us, there's just the same amount of people that aren't happy. It's no different than any other job. But I agree with you. I think it's your mindset into. So if you're into that and like yes, it helps to see the tangible, like the brick by brick, if I may, of what you're building. But I think also it's in your head of like, hey, I like if you just had the mindset of like this is work, this sucks, it's gonna suck. But if it's the mindset of like I'm building something, or like this is gonna have my name on it for, ever, or like whatever it may be, like as long as you have that, and that could apply to any job. Like as long as you have that mindset of like I'm passionate and seeking fulfillment in this, you're probably gonna find it.
yeah.
But
I mean there are a lot of careers out there I can imagine that would be hard, like if you're not doing very much. I know here in particular, a lot of people want to work on the Air Force Base.
Hmm.
It's a huge, I mean, probably the biggest um, supplier of jobs, we'll say, around this area. And there isn't a lot going on up there. Like they hire on so many people that kind of just don't do that much. And I've heard from a ton of people like they get onboarded and go into work and they will um, go in for training, but the person that's supposed to be training them is out of town and doing this and that. And so they'll just have to go into work for weeks and just sit in a room. They're
That's
getting
crazy.
paid, they're getting paid
Yeah.
for it, but they just sit
Yeah.
there and do nothing. And I'm like, sure, that sounds nice, just collecting a check, but you have to be there, but you can't do anything.
Yeah.
So that doesn't help you find fulfillment in any way, shape, or form. And
Hmm.
if you are in a job where you feel like you can't get ahead or um, improve or learn skills or whatever, I think that happens across the board. It happens in trade jobs where people, feel like they're being drugged down or kept down by some
Hmm.
of the older guys, like not letting them do stuff.
Crabs in a bucket.
Yeah, and but there are places where you literally can't do anything no matter what you
Hmm.
try. And that's probably upsetting. I just don't think it happens as much in construction. And I feel like or in trade work in general. And I feel like it's easier to go find a new position that's gonna pay better. There's always another opportunity out there. I It's hard to say, but I feel like the main reason is because people like you have these skills that nobody can take away from you. It's not like
Yeah.
at a job, people will be like, "Well, can you really do what you say you do?" And then it's hard to justify or prove it.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's, I think, on your point of like you're able to move like up for like wherever it may be within the trades, like that is another thing, I guess, to touch on. It would be the fact that you can, if with ambition and motivation and the right uh, company or people around you, you can move up and see that. So like you can be like, okay, if I'm really good at like being the hot tender, they're going to give me more like opportunity to do the next step. And then eventually that leads to becoming the mason, and then that leads to becoming like, in my case, the foreman or whatever it may be. And you can like that's an easily measurable ladder to climb versus like I assume, like maybe sales, you sell more things, you probably get bumped up, or like there's other stuff in the world that I don't know about. But I think that is a good thing about it, is like your most of the time your effort is rewarded and it's a measurable reward. Like you can figure it out from bottom to top.
Yeah. Well,
Unless of course you have a bunch of dickhead old masons ahead of you.
which happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, this is something that I think about a lot, and I've done quite a few podcasts about. I feel like what leads to this is this overhyping and overselling of the results of education. No matter what career you pursue, um, because it's always such a push to get an education because, you'll, get your dream job and you'll make all this money and be successful and that type of stuff. People have this idea that if they go get this thing, they go to school, spend all this money, get this piece of paper that says, they know they're a master of accounting or whatever, that all of a sudden their problems will vanish.
Mm.
Where you don't there is no actual promise of fulfillment there, but they claim there is. Like
Mm.
there people will go to school pursuing, let's just say, becoming a doctor, right? Not actually wanting to do that, but doing it because, oh yeah, well that's just what people do because they're successful, and
Mm.
no thought of whether or not they're going to like it, and developing any real passion for it. I think anybody that has a passion for what they do will be just fine no matter what they do. I mean, like we've talked before about people that clean the porta potties. So I
Yeah.
don't understand how you could do that, but people do it, and I'm sure they make good
Yeah.
money. And it's it's a job and it provides for your family. And if you can find purpose in it, great. But
Hmm.
the problem is people sell degrees as though they are what's going to make or break your life. They are going to define your life. And the purpose comes from within, not from some other, outside source. And you have to find that for yourself. And I think that's it's so discouraging to see how many people shit on the trades because they claim you can't be successful and they're hard on your body and like all this rhetoric that the colleges have pushed to get people away from there to go to school.
Hmm.
Uh, like you have to look at what's fueling that. I mean, at the end of the day, they want more people to go to school so they can, have more people into their system and make more money and all that type of stuff. But I don't know. It's crazy. It's more and more I see it. I mean, I saw a thread today that I'll bring up in a minute about that. I mean, people are so like messed up in the head about trades people. I mean, it's just
Hmm.
like they're lesser, like basically third world country type people. There's so many people like that.
I think, I mean, college and like that part of society has done an incredible job of marketing, and that's how we got here, right? And
Yeah.
the trades fell short on that one, which is, what we're trying to fix. But it's just, they did a great job of marketing. They did their point, and they make money. But I agree with you. I think so many kids get shoved into college because that's what you're supposed to do, and that's what's promoted. And so like it's in your face, I get it, but they don't have any sense of direction. So they're going like even when I was in college, I knew kids that had been there for 6, 7 years that have switched their major like 3 times because they have no direction. They're just there because they're supposed to be there. And or like for instance, like I went and got a business administration degree. Why did I need to go learn about aliens and biology and things like imagine if you showed up to a trade like, hey, I know you're here to become a brick mason, but just while we're here, you're gonna go play like over there with like the dude that's flipping the stop sign out in the road. You're gonna go do that for like 3 months. It has nothing to do with what we're doing, but you need to go over there, and like why? Why like there's no like until you get to the specialized part of college, it's just a crapshoot,
Yeah.
and it's
Well, I feel like some of that's necessary, but they, so I've always had a problem with that because, when I was going for engineering, like they make you fill up on so many different things that just doesn't make any sense. And
mhm,
I like math myself, but there's a lot of kids that go to engineering that don't like math that much, and
mhm,
you have to take so many math classes that you end up like probably a couple semesters away from just having a, a degree in
yeah,
math. And it's
yeah,
like, who in the world as an engineer needs to know that much? Like I started talking to engineers about some of the math stuff and they were like, I haven't even looked at that since college. And at some point, like it's good to know these things and to teach
mhm,
critical thinking, except for there's a point where it's overkill and they're just trying to get people into the system for so long and spend so much money that it like everybody's doing it. So it is what it is. Instead
mhm,
of like the fast track, like I feel like you could become an engineer with probably 2 years of schooling and then learning on the job. But it's like 4 years for most people, or claimed to be 4 years, but it ends up being like 5 plus for a lot
mhm,
of people, and just end up learning a bunch of stuff that doesn't even really help you. And then by the time you get to your job, you're like basically learning something completely new.
mhm,
And it just, I think that's part of the problem too. So you go get this degree, and then while you're learning this stuff, you don't even have an idea of what you'll actually be doing once you get into the field. Not to mention, like most people are just there because they're supposed to and don't even know if they're gonna like it to begin with. So they end up switching all over the place. because, oh, I
Yep.
don't like this, I don't like that, this isn't my dream job, instead of doubling down and finding a purpose in it. So, but it's hard. It's hard to find their purpose in something that you can't really see.
Hmm.
They need to do a better job of showing exactly what you'll be doing at the thing you're pursuing.
And I think that's an American problem, because there's like you look at the European side of things and you can specialize at a young like, okay, if this is what you're like, it makes me think of that the aptitude test we took when we were kids, and they're like, okay, you can do it, and like, what are your interests? And it's like, oh, that kid likes this, like, you should go like work at a skate shop, bro, or like a surfboard shop. I'm like, bro, I just think the ocean's cool, you know. But there's no like the schooling system here is it's not set up to foster like that path to fulfillment. It's set up to be like it's critical thinking, which is like you said, that's important skills and things like that. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed that aliens class and biology, but I don't think it fosters a like if you have a kid that's like really, really interested in something, you can't specialize in that and just go that way.
Yeah.
Whereas like you see in Europe, you can do that. Or what, like even if you look at sports, like kids have to go through the schooling system, go to college, and then become a professional sports player. Versus like you look at Europe, Messi was with Barcelona at like age 11. Like that route is, so maybe it's an us thing and not a worldly thing. But
It probably could be. I mean, I think in different countries, trades are also more pushed. From
mm,
what I
like,
understand, in Australia, there's a really strong presence for the
mhm.
trades. I think Europe, in some places, there kind of is.
I think Australia's, yeah, for sure. Because I have people messaging me from Australia that'll be like, they'll see stuff and they're like, why do people talk so much like down on trades where you're from? Because here that's what you want to go do.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I feel like we need to get back to a point like that because so many people are in positions that are just getting replaced or they're just unhappy in, and uh, it's just, I mean, the person that reached out to you mentioned that they have a lot of friends that are in, have degrees in their careers and stuff, and they're constantly still searching for purpose and fulfillment. I mean, I think that
Hmm.
is a problem with everybody. Like everybody
Hmm.
wants to feel like they have a purpose and they have um, like like they have a purpose for being here. And a lot of people find that through families or like raising kids and stuff.
Hmm.
And a lot of people nowadays aren't even doing that. So it we kind of have a purpose issue. And just to bring it back to the beginning, like trades, you just see what you're gonna do. Like you can
Hmm.
start in a job, you know what you're gonna do. You get trained on the job, you learn on the job, and you know what to expect. People just don't know what to expect going through
Hmm.
college. They don't know where they're going, what they're doing, all that type of stuff. And the people that do know what to expect, I think, do find fulfillment there, or are really passionate about
Yeah.
it. But yeah, it just depends, on the person, I
Yeah. And
think.
that, yeah. And like one of my best friends, Phil, he's an engineer, but and like he knew that that's where he was going. And like it took him, he had to go through the college thing and get there. But like you said, I think it's probably all person specific. So what like is on like you have to know where you're going, but if you don't know where you're going and decide to just go to college and you just go there and like waste the time and money, like what was the point? And unfortunately for my buddy, he's like went and got his master's and you know, if you at that point you're deep into it.
Yeah.
And so it's unfortunate that he got that deep and then he's like, okay, I don't even like this. So it's like wonder what could have been solved along the way for him, of like, okay, clearly you were into this, like or for whatever reason you went that way, and then you got into your field, and it left you hanging. But yeah, I wonder I don't know if what could have led him to that, like after the fact. But
Yeah.
there should
I
have been some
know,
hands-on in the middle.
yeah. I know from my experience. Like I didn't even like working doing concrete for a really long time, and I kind of felt like once I started realizing I enjoyed it and I was developing skills and I could see those skills develop real time almost.
Hmm.
I almost felt like that was being me not liking it was being pushed on me by society, we'll say, for just acting like trades aren't a viable option. And when I was going to school, there were some hands-on stuff for the engineering thing, but it just felt like there was a lot of distractions. So I
Yeah.
just and that's what I mentioned earlier. There's just so many things you have to take that it just it gets you off course and makes you lose sight of what's actually going to happen. And I was going because I have an aptitude for it, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like, oh yeah, you should pursue this. You can do well in learning this stuff without realizing that I'm just a curious person. I like learning things, and I wouldn't want to sit down all day. Like that's not in my personality to just sit at a desk and work. Um,
Hmm.
I can do that sometimes, but that for me, when I started to realize I don't think I could do that, I was like, shoot, I don't know if I'm even gonna like this. I like learning it. I love learning stuff, and especially
Yeah.
like in engineering, it was all interesting to me. But
Hmm.
I was like, I don't think I'm gonna like this. So I stopped and yeah, and I started to realize how much I actually enjoyed being outside and working and um, creating things.
Hmm. I was,
As you know, lately I've been getting
yeah.
into some masonry stuff and just like developing some different
Yeah.
skills. And I think it's cool that you can do so many different things and they all kind of almost translate together.
Right. Yeah. And I think like I did the same thing. I mean, I got within 16 credits of having my degree, and I remember sitting in class. Like I said, I got a business administration and a marketing minor, but I was like sitting in class watching the student. I was like, you like it's the concept that it's all theory. Like it's there's no practice. So I was sitting in class. I was like, I could keep writing 8-page papers, or I could just go to work. And so I left. I was like, I don't know why I'm still here at this point, you know. And I'm, as some people have pointed out, I work for a family business, so I'm in a little
Uh,
different position. But
well, that's
like I,
something we should bring up too in a
but
minute.
yeah, but like I still, had to work from the bottom up. But I knew the path was over there to get like I could do in practice what I was learning in theory. So I was like, why am I here listening to this person who does have the knowledge? And some of my professors were like, they were good at what they were uh, teaching. They had real world experience, but I was just like, this doesn't necessarily apply to the path that I want to put myself on. And so I got to that point, I was just like, I'm done with this, And then I left and went to work, and I've been there since.
Yeah. Well, going on that, maybe and it also happens maybe a lot because that push to go to school is like literally you graduate high school and then you go to school instead of
Hmm.
going out into the world and getting some real world experience and figuring out what you might like. So if you happen to be a kid that didn't really have much direction and the only direction you're ever getting, like your parents didn't really push you in any measurable direction, you don't have any really friends that push you anywhere. So the only direction you're getting pushed in is going to school. You could end up sitting in a class like that and being like, I don't think I want to do this. And
Hmm.
instead, you could have been out working, making money instead of spending money on education, getting real world education. And then maybe at that point, you'll get to a point where you're like, oh, maybe I do want to go be, an accountant, or maybe I want to go to school to be a doctor. But you don't have to do that, and you don't have to go right when you're 18 either, unless you
Hmm.
absolutely know that that's what you want to do.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And that's again, I think the people outside of the U.S. are good at, because you have your gap.
Yeah.
I just turn it like, let's go see the world real quick. Let's go figure out who I am. I think, yeah, some other places and, some people here do it, but I think other places do a good job of like figure out who you are and then go into that sort of thing, which again, it's just like the college industry has done a very good job of marketing and it's produced enough results to like, hey, don't do that, go this way.
Well, it's something interesting I heard Jordan Peterson mention is when he was teaching classes, he was always astounded by the amount of people that had never sat down and written out a vision for their life, for who they want to be. Um,
Hmm.
and that's like the foundation of how you decide what you want to do. And how could you go spend so much time at school without really sitting down and writing out your a vision for your future
Hmm.
and waste all that time and money. And so he would have people like he would ask his students who had done that and basically nobody. So the school system is not teaching people how to decide what they want to be. They're just trying to basically make them go do something maybe that they don't even want to do.
Yeah, it's more acting like a just a big funnel,
Yeah.
you know. And then, but I think a lot of people could benefit from what you're saying and maybe figure like figure out what you want to be and reverse engineer that. Figure out like, okay, I want to do this. How do I get there? And then just reverse engineer that from that point.
Yeah. So we had some good um responses.
Hmm.
People reaching out and giving their thoughts. So we'll go kind of talk about some of those. I mean, it's basically what we're talking about. One person in the troll um, group
Hmm.
saying that they think that in the blue collar world, it's because you can see a tangible, measurable result every single day,
Hmm.
which is true. I mean, we've touched on that already, but you can literally watch progress happen and do it physically. Um,
Hmm.
which, by the way, I feel like how that's how people keep going to the gym and also quit going to the gym for the same
Yeah.
reason. Like they either feel like they can't see progress in their body or they can see progress in like ability and then they just keep
Hmm.
going and pushing that. So I
Hmm.
I think it being able to see the results immediately are pretty um is a pretty amazing thing to keep your mind engaged and moving forward.
Hmm.
One thing I liked that was a comment that somebody said was consistent hard work brings fulfillment in both blue and white collar jobs, and it's
Hmm.
easier to find more dedicated, harder workers in blue collar jobs. I think that there actually might be some truth to that because you can see those results, and so it's easier to be like, okay, I got this task today, get this done, and I can go home or whatever.
Right.
Whereas you might go to a depending on where you're working, you might go clock in and just, type on your computer, whatever. You may not have like really set goals and tasks for the day. Um, and then you just go home. Like
Hmm.
where was the progress? What really happened? Like I've heard quite a few people that get into these positions and you hear about it online where it's like, what did I even do today? And that sounds great and all, like, oh yeah, you didn't have to work hard, break your back or whatever, like people like to say. But
Hmm.
if you don't feel like you accomplished anything, then what was the point of even doing it? So
Yeah.
I don't know if I can jump on the train of there's more harder workers in blue collar jobs, but I could almost see how that could be the case.
Yeah. I think in our industry, there's maybe some fuel behind the fire, like you said, because you can measure whether it's with what you're doing or your skills that you're building. So and then that in itself breeds motivation and ambition. So, but like to your point, I know some of my buddies in sales. Like theirs is it's a numbers game, right? They're
Yep.
they can see that now, and I know some of those dudes do some stuff like sun up to sundown for freaking 3 to 6 months just straight. I don't want to do that. Like,
Yeah.
and I work hard enough in my job and whatnot, but like there are, my point is there's are people in other industries that are willing to do that and they have a way of measuring their thing. But I think from here to there, the we have the tangible, they have the monetary, and it's like in between, you're going to get lost if you don't have some other form of fulfillment. Because, like, sure, I can go do something that fills my bank account, but at the end of the day, like, what am I doing to benefit anyone else or the world around me?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, we could also touch on the fact that how long have these so-called white collar jobs even been around?
Hmm.
I mean, people have been using their body to do things like complete tasks, build structures, do all that type of stuff forever. That's always been a thing.
Hmm.
It's never been a thing to just sit down at a desk and look at a computer. Like, there isn't any reason that people should be able to find any fulfillment in that
Hmm.
without really searching and um, finding passion and desire to do it. Like, without a really, really strong desire and passion to do it, there's no reason that that should even be fulfilling in the slightest because it's not a normal thing for humans to do. It's
Right.
I mean, how long has the computer been around? Hardly at all. How long have we
Hmm.
even been in mass sitting down at desks with paper even in big buildings? Like, it's not even been that long. What, 50, 60, 70 years maybe? Like, that
Hmm.
it's been this widespread. Like, that's a lifetime pretty much.
Hmm.
Whereas before that, even all the way up until then, it was always people were building things and getting up every day with the sun, going out and completing tasks that are physical, and then maybe even getting tired from it and laying down and getting a good night's sleep and getting back at it again. So
Yeah.
it's almost more natural for us to be operating like that. So maybe that's part of it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, another a set point, which I can see myself getting flack for this after I say it, but people for years and years travel around to see things such as the Eiffel Tower, our cathedrals, the pyramids, all that stuff. No one's traveled around the world to see your spreadsheet. Like to that point, everything that Apple's ever built, we love it, stuff like that. Like there's tons of things that have been super innovative outside of the blue collar world, or like I'm not gonna, some of that stuff's not blue collar, but like it's a testament of like what humanity has built with our hands that has lasted so long. Like that's been so admirable to us as a society versus like I said, whatever we work on is going to last for hundreds of years versus like if you're just there type, like I said, a spreadsheet. No one's coming to admire your spreadsheet other than the dude that's like, cool, thanks for getting that on time. Do the next one.
That's a super good point. Like, people travel all over to see architecture
Hmm.
and things that humans have created. Like yeah, just architecture
Like,
in general.
yeah,
I mean,
they travel to see legacy.
yeah, and that stays around and we marvel at these feats that humans have created, but it's almost now it's like not even that's weird. Like, it's almost like we look at it and, oh yeah, that's really cool that people did that in the past, but now just that doesn't matter anymore. Like, it's a really weird concept to think about. How we love old
Mm.
architecture so much, yet don't appreciate new building and construction that is allowing our world to further and flourish and providing homes for people and all of that type of stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, there's things like like the line in Saudi Arabia, if that had been a real project, that probably would have been something that people are like, what or like myself, like as far as a modern one, when I went to China. the I made everyone we were going home, and so we were headed to the airport, and I like made everybody get off this train so that we could get on the magnetic levitation train so I could ride that thing, you know. So there are modern marvels as well, but it's yeah, it's like I said, it's the stuff that
Yeah.
the stuff that we as humans value seems to be in legacy and like what things that have been built that have lasted forever.
Yeah. It's well, it's true. And when I went to Japan, like the majority of what people do there is
Hmm.
like go around to shrines and
Yeah.
temples and stuff and take pictures of them and do all that and walk around them and like, man, this is cool.
Hmm.
And the appreciation is there because it was done, a long time ago and it looks pretty and stuff. Like,
Hmm.
but that's what people do. And then they go marvel at the landscaping work that people can do and how neat and detailed everything is. And like people did that with their hands physically. Like you can create such beautiful things that people love, but nowadays it's almost not respected as much. It's weird. It is
Hmm.
really weird.
And there's a growing aspect of that. Like, I mean, we see it through our content, right? Of like people are willing to watch us build these things and they're interested in it, and whether it's to see it satisfying or to learn about it or how it works or that sort of stuff. There's enough of us blue collar content creators that have gained a following to prove that people are interested in it. But like I don't think maybe I can think of one dude that does an office job that like I'm interested in following, and it's that dude that does like gosh, what's his I can't remember his freaking thing. It's but he does like he's his content is based on like not glorifying. Like he goes, yeah, I just go to my 9 to 5, you know. And yeah, I cannot remember his freaking name, but but like that's the world that we live as people are watching, like they're clearly like interested in our what we're doing, you know. So
Yeah.
there's a growing interest in it again. I think, you know, maybe it's ebbs and flows, like whether we want to call it like a high tide and a low tide of like for a long time in society that the tide was there and like that was where we went, and then it ebbed out, and now it's went the other way to college and the 9 to 5 like office or you know whatever it may be, and maybe that's swinging back
Yeah.
or a pendulum if you will. Because I do think a lot of people are recognizing that like there's a need for all this,
Yeah.
and like um you know whether it's the fulfillment or knowing that like I can go over there and make money because there's fewer or whatever it may be.
Well, it's almost nowadays because there are people that are watching. They watch the content and it's satisfying, but it's almost like a you look but don't partake. It's almost like you enjoy watching as a
Mhm.
concept, but then oh yeah, well we can just let somebody else do that. Let somebody
Sure.
else. And it's because so many people think it's so hard on you that it's like lesser than or something like because of the marketing that
Hmm.
college has done obviously to where you think that trades are destroying people and destroying their bodies and stuff like it really is a look but don't partake type deal. It's like that sounds cool, but I'll let somebody else do that. I want to
Yeah.
keep my body safe by sitting in this chair.
Yeah, which also in turn breaks down your body, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
well, whatever.
Yeah, we need more people that look like Schumann, you know, like that dude's yoked out of his mind.
Uh-huh,
Like, hey,
for
like
sure.
look at, but you know, and to the point, everybody's seen enough old men that have been beaten down, but that was, you know,
Yeah,
lifestyle choices and things
yeah,
like that that don't get talked about.
yeah. Well, and that's an important part you brought up too, because it isn't the job, it's the lifestyle, which and unfortunately the lifestyle is really prevalent in trade work where
Hmm.
you get done work and you just go home and sit down on the couch and drink beer. Like
Hmm.
that's a very, very normal lifestyle and smoke 2 packs of cigarettes throughout the day and um,
Yeah.
don't eat enough food and all that type of stuff. Don't drink enough water, like all of that. That's normal, um, common practice in a lot of trade jobs. And we actually haven't seen very many people that have gotten older and have taken care of themselves forever. And I know a few and they're just fine. So
Hmm.
a good majority of people that I know that have gotten older in the trades did not take care of themselves, and you can't use them as an example. And it's just I think nowadays there's so much information out there that people realize that you can actually do this and not break yourself down. And it's funny because I know some people that are older in the trades that look fine, like move
Hmm.
fine, and they just sit there and complain about how they're broken down and stuff. And I'm like, dude, look at all these people that are your age that are sitting at a desk forever that are freaking, back hurting and complaining about their shoulders and like all this stuff. Like it happens to everybody.
Hmm.
And it's almost like a built-in idea for most tradespeople that as they get older, it's like, oh man, I'm too old for this. Oh man, I'm hurting that type of stuff. So it's like you almost make yourself think that you are when you're actually, oh yeah, it's actually not as bad as you think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
What?
the there was one more comment. Fulfillment is within us. And it's your perspective
Hmm.
that makes you love or hate work, which I think is true too. That's, been a topic of one of my podcasts before. Um, it's all about your perspective. Like people, like you mentioned, can go into blue collar jobs and absolutely hate them,
Hmm.
but it's maybe even because they're just have in their mind that they're going to hate it and that it's just a means to an end. So they just hate it to begin with instead
Yeah.
of looking at it from a different perspective and being like, oh man, yeah, I can get some cool skills and be active and be outside and uh, make good money and yeah, it's actually not as bad as I think. So it's all about your mindset because what you are thinking about the way that your work is going is how it's gonna seem to you. That's what you're gonna see.
Mm. Yeah, it's this it's like I said, you'll find what you seek. And unfortunately, for people like my buddy Tony that's gotten that far deep into it, and I'd have to know more about what happened to understand how he got that deep and then got into the field and it turned. But um I guess there's both. There's perspective and then there's environment, right? Because I can be as stoked about this as I possibly can, but if you get into an environment where there's no possible way for you to become fulfilled, that's just a roadblock. But
Well, it's
yeah.
it's amazing to see how your perspective and your expectations for the day even make your day go. Because there's a lot of
Hmm.
days where we'll have something that I just don't want to do and I'm not happy about or I'm not psyched about. And it literally you feel like it's going worse than it is.
Hmm.
Like you almost can um if you're in a bad mood or you're not looking forward to whatever you're doing, don't want to do it, whatever, it's almost like it makes it worse than it actually is because because of your prior expectations or whatever.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's as simple as like getting out of bed. Like if you're not stoked about it, you're gonna stay at, if I'm not stoked about having to wake up and go do this, I'm gonna hit snooze a bunch of times. If I see fulfillment in the
Yeah.
something I'm working toward, I'm gonna get up. Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
There there's a lot of people that have reached out on this topic and I think it really is just a good topic to go over. I mean, there's even another one that I forgot about. Um
Mm,
Basically talking about everything we've just discussed. There's a lot of unmet expectations in white collar jobs. You spend a lot of years in school doing things you never do on the job. Might not know and you might not really even need to know how to do. You have
mm,
student loans to get paid off when you get done and the job's different than it's explained um,
mm,
or expected. And yeah, the job expectations in blue collar jobs are clear. Show up, do this, this is how you make money, whatever, and then you're
yeah.
done. Um,
Yeah.
and again, jobs where you work with your hands, it's uh, physically moving is more how we are wired as humans, like being able to have the control with our hands and using them is super intricately designed in our mind.
Mm,
And like it almost adds to this level of fulfillment. So, I mean, people are responding to this with all of this stuff that we've been discussing. So I almost think people know it, but a lot of people don't want to admit it. I'll
mm,
say that.
yeah. Like sunk cost fallacy, if you will. Like
Yeah.
we're already so far into this as a society, I can't correct that.
Yeah. Well, it comes down to like the marketing for college has just muddled up the expectations and realities, I think.
Mm,
They've forced um, the expectations on, and they don't, that it's not usually reality. But like the thing is though, is I know plenty of people that went to college that make good money that are fulfilled, but most of
hmm
those people knew what they want to do before they went, the
Yeah.
majority of them. And the bad thing is a lot of people that are unhappy in their current position most likely aren't going to be happy when they go get another job because it's a state of mind. So while I do think it's easier to find purpose and fulfillment in trade work, um, at the end of the day, if you're unhappy, if you're an unhappy person, you're going to be unhappy no matter what. So it just doesn't even matter. Like the ability to be content and find fulfillment um, is almost a gift in and of itself
mm,
nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, yeah, that's a good conclusion. And then as well as like, I think the college versus trades can also come down to theory versus practice. Like
Mhm.
over here, you're learning in theory, this is how all this works. But over here in the trades, like day one, you're learning in practice, this is how this works.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah,
yeah. It's awesome. Well, I don't know. You got anything else you want to discuss? I mean, I guess we
um,
could we could go over family business.
hey, we got to make some more episodes, dude.
I know, I know. Maybe we'll go over that because I actually want to. Um, maybe we'll do that as another topic episode. Forewarning here, we might
Yeah,
be
yeah, I think we could make it.
talking about bosses' kids and how it's not
Yeah,
actually as easy as for some people think for some reason. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
there's a reason why there's not as many people that work for their parents as there are parents that have businesses. So it's not as
yeah.
easy as you might think.
I think we could get a great episode and some content that would
So,
upset some more people so they can DM you about
jeez. Yeah. Awesome. Well, everybody, we're so this was kind of a topic episode, uh,
it. Mm.
sort of with a Q&A. Last one was a Q&A. So anyways, we'll just keep seeing how this goes.
Yeah.
And we'll probably put out prompts or message either of us with a topic you'd like to hear. We'll probably go from there that way. I think
Yeah.
that's
And
yeah.
I say the Discord is on your. Can they find the Discord through your Instagram?
Yes, it's on
Okay.
there. In my Instagram, I could probably add you as a collaborator. I don't know how that works, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. So,
Or not
um,
Discord, it's a channel on
channel.
Instagram. Sorry.
Yeah, channel. So, and
But
that's
yeah.
where I'll be putting a lot of the stuff is prompts or notifications of topic episodes coming up and yeah, podcast updates on my Instagram. So
Perfect.
appreciate everybody listening and appreciate you coming again and joining me, Jesse.
Yes, sir. Appreciate
And
you.
yeah, and we'll see everybody next time.
Okay. See ya.